The world is holding its breath, with all eyes fixed on the Middle East. Has the 12-day conflict between Israel and Iran truly ended, or is this merely a brief lull? Will the war reignite? Statements and images from Iran, coupled with Israel's apparent defiance, are raising global alarms. These signs suggest that the conflict in the Middle East is far from over, with the potential for further escalation lingering just beneath the surface. Hello, dear friends. We're back with another program, and I extend my respectful and heartfelt greetings to all of you. Just the other evening, Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz's statements seemed to signal the onset of a new conflict. Katz asserted his country's right to strike Iran again, claiming, "We will pursue a policy of coercion to prevent Iran from rebuilding its missile and nuclear programs." These words could very well open the door to a new catastrophe in the region, even before the ink on President Trump's declared ceasefire has dried. Katz's remarks on national news channels clearly indicate that Israel is contemplating and even preparing for new attacks on Iran despite the ceasefire. Katz stated that Israel aims to maintain air superiority over Iran, prevent Iran from advancing its nuclear projects, and halt the development of long-range missiles that threaten Israel. He declared their resolve on these 3 points. Let's unpack these rights that the Israeli Defense Minister refers to. Maintaining air superiority over Iran. For one nation to claim air superiority over another's airspace is not a right. It's an act of occupation. This is unequivocally clear. Yet, Katz suggests that Israel will dominate Iran's airspace, preventing Iranian aircraft from flying and stopping Iran from hindering Israeli flights. This inherently implies continuous conflict, stopping Iran's nuclear projects. Despite Katz's assertion, satellite images and statements from Iran suggest the opposite. Iran declares it will continue its nuclear activities, and signs of renewed work are evident at sites like the bombed Fordo base, preventing the development of long-range missiles. Israel views Iran's ballistic missiles, which successfully inflicted significant damage on Israel during the recent conflict, as a casus belli. Israel asserts that as long as these missiles exist, the conflict will persist, and they will prevent their development. These statements from Israel clearly demonstrate an attempt to violate Iran's sovereign rights. Therefore, this conflict is unlikely to cease. It will persist. You'll recall the war paused after 12 days, with a ceasefire declared following U.S. bombing raids on 3 Iranian nuclear facilities. President Trump announced that Iran's nuclear program had been completely destroyed. However, U.S. intelligence reports, including those from the CIA and Pentagon, were inconclusive, stating they couldn't ascertain the full extent of the damage, and that it was unlikely. Iran's nuclear program had been entirely eliminated. Israel shares this view, believing the facilities were damaged but not eradicated. The Israeli Chief of Staff, however, believes Iran's nuclear program may have been set back by 35 years, stating that Iran is no longer a nuclear threshold country. But they also claim the right to strike if there's any sign of activity in that program, meaning Israeli jets could, at any moment, bomb an Iranian nuclear facility. The Israeli Defense Minister's reckless statements suggest that war is not a distant possibility. This could even discomfit America, Israel's strongest ally. As while America shares Israel's goals, it dislikes Israel acting unilaterally. When we say America, we're referring to Trump, who was infuriated by the shaky start to the ceasefire, with both sides opening fire in its initial hours. Trump directed his harshest criticisms at Israel, even warning them via social media that renewed bombardment would be a major violation. At the time Trump declared the ceasefire, hundreds of Israeli jets were flying over Iran, targeting over 100 locations. Trump called Netanyahu, reportedly raising his voice, demanding, Pull all your pilots back immediately. Pull them back now. He warned that any bombardment would be a violation. A negotiation ensued, with Netanyahu only managing to secure permission for one or a few planes to hit 2 to 3 targets in Tehran. Defense Minister Katz told Israel's Channel 12 that Israel would not need America's approval to attack Iran in the near future. Katz explicitly stated that when Iranians violate the terms, Israel will strike Iran. However, these terms are, in fact, the normal sovereign rights of any state. If Iran builds ballistic missiles, Israel will strike. If Iran conducts nuclear research or builds nuclear facilities, Israel will strike. Essentially, Israel intends to strike Iran under virtually any circumstances. What Israel truly demands from Iran is do not develop air defense systems against flying objects in your sky. Do not produce, purchase, or launch aircraft. I will strike any of your locations whenever I want, and you will not utter a sound. These are, in essence, Israel's practical demands. When asked how they would enforce such difficult demands, Defense Minister Katz stated, they would use a coercion policy, which he claimed was highly successful against Hezbollah in Lebanon, and they would apply the same tactic to Iran. Recall that in Lebanon, Israel first assassinated prominent Hezbollah leaders, then their successors. Additionally, thousands of Hezbollah operatives and high-ranking officials were killed or wounded in an attack via pagers and walkie-talkies. Approximately 5,000 Hezbollah leaders were neutralized by Israel. Following this, Israel conducted numerous airstrikes in Lebanon, even sending troops and weapons across the border to establish a broad, demilitarized zone. Israel declared, if any Hezbollah fighter enters this area, I will bomb it, and they did. Not only in that zone, but also in Beirut and even areas north of Beirut. Defense Minister Katz also told Channel 13 that their policy for Iran would be similar to that in Lebanon, but 100 times more intense. Meanwhile, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araqi dismisses Israel's threats. In an interview with state television, Araqi stated, Iran is not Lebanon. However, on the very first day of the 12-day conflict, Israel managed to kill 20 high-ranking Iranian generals and other officials, including the chief of staff. Additionally, Israel killed numerous nuclear scientists. Do not underestimate this. Killing scientists is often more effective than bombing nuclear facilities. Why? Because nuclear programs are run by scientists. If you eliminate 3 key scientists, the program can be set back by years. We've seen Israel kill many Iranian scientists during these attacks. During the war, the primary targets for Israel were the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC buildings, and bases, as they are considered the regime's guardians and hold symbolic importance. This mirrors Israel's tactic in Gaza, where they first destroyed the tallest buildings and symbolic Hamas sites. In Iran, they are using a similar strategy, demolishing symbols of authority. Their aim is to make the IRGC appear weak and helpless, hoping to incite a popular uprising against the regime. Israel expects to continue these efforts in the coming days. In other words, Israel has already begun implementing the methods it used in Lebanon and partly in Gaza, in Iran, starting on the first day of the 12-day war. Iran, for its part, does not trust Israel and anticipates ongoing attacks. Iranian Foreign Minister Araqi stated he has serious doubts about Israel's adherence to the ceasefire. Araqi claimed that Israel's increased activities in Lebanon and aggression in Gaza in recent days are concrete signs of their intent to attack Iran. Araqi argued that Israel declares ceasefires, assuming the other side is weak, then violates its own declared ceasefire through fait accompli actions, trying to prevent any reaction. Despite significant damage in the war, Iran still possesses ballistic missiles, drones, and launch mechanisms. This means Iran still retains the capability to retaliate if Israel attempts to strike again, at least for now. Iraqi declared, "We will absolutely retaliate against any violation by the Zionist regime," which implies sending ballistic missiles to Israel. Even more shocking was a claim made by Israeli Defense Minister Katz himself. Katz stated, "If an opportunity arose during the war, we would have killed Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei." He added, "This time, we will succeed." Katz asserted that if Khamenei had been in the crossfire, they would have eliminated him. This suggests Israel sought to eliminate Khamenei during the war, but couldn't quite get to him. Trump sometimes acts as a mediator. Just a few days ago, speaking in Lahaina, Trump said, "Iran and Israel had a big fight." He likened them to two children in a schoolyard, saying he let them fight for a while. Trump suggests he graciously allowed Israel and Iran to fight for 12 days before intervening. Hearing these words, you might think Trump fancies himself a school principal, but that's not the case. Trump is effectively Israel's guardian, its parent figure, and Iran's adversary. It's highly probable that at this very moment, Israel and the US are colluding, planning the next attack on Iran. I'm certain that the Pentagon, the CIA, and other American intelligence and security units are working on plans for the next Iranian offensive. Indeed, a resolution recently came from the House of Representatives to the Senate. The Senate rejected the bill that would have restricted Trump's ability to wage war on Iran, effectively endorsing his power to do so. In other words, the American Congress is backing Trump and supporting Israel, seemingly pleased with the strikes on Iran. The ceasefire between Israel and Iran has not definitively ended the war. It's merely a brief pause. When Trump declared the ceasefire, hundreds of Israeli planes were over Iranian airspace, on the verge of hitting over 100 targets in Iran, but they were recalled at the last minute. What does this mean? Israel's appetite for striking was curtailed mid-action, almost as if a highly anticipated event was abruptly stopped. Israel will not cease. It will try to regularly strike Iran. Both Iran and the world know this. However, Iran needs time to heal its wounds. Iran must have understood that missiles alone won't be enough. With conventional methods, Iran's chances against Israel are low. Israel's reach extends to the streets of Tehran, even into the very capillaries of the state. Imagine, they can kill the country's chief of staff. Iran cannot achieve results by merely launching random ballistic missiles from afar in response. On the other hand, as long as Iran possesses long-range missiles, this war will not end for Israel. We've been saying from the start that while nuclear weapons are important for Israel, they know Iran doesn't have them, and might not in the near future. However, the ballistic missiles are there, and they can destroy buildings in Tel Aviv. This is unacceptable for Israel. So, if you ask when the war between Israel and Iran will flare up again, I believe this war hasn't ended. As we've been saying, it's just a break, like a water break or a breathing pause. Both sides have stopped, like the end of the first round in a boxing match. But the second round is coming, and Israel will most likely try to strike Iran regularly, independently of a declared war. What will determine whether a full-scale war occurs? Iran's ability to maintain its missile-launching capability, because from now on, it's highly probable that Israel and America will strike Iran's missile launchers and missile depots. Once those are dealt with, Iran could be left completely defenseless. The Middle East simply cannot settle down. Israel never tires of attacking its. They bomb Lebanon, stir up trouble in Gaza, killing 50 to 60 people daily, most of whom are waiting for aid. Israel also occasionally strikes Yemen, as you know. If there's any small movement in Syria, they strike there too. It's as if they are the region's aggressor, attacking everyone. Like a gang terrorizing a neighborhood, Israel acts as a lone gang. Alright, that's all for today. Thank you very much for watching. Take good care of yourselves. Goodbye.